Stand still for 5 seconds on this street and you're dead weight. You're a blockage in the veins of a titan. Look around you. This is Victorian London, 1870. But purge your mind of the top hats, the polite tea parties, and the polished royal carriages you've seen in Hollywood period dramas. That London was a curated illusion for the elite 1%. For the other 99%, this city was a brutal, industrial beast. A machine fueled by crowd pressure, desperate labor, and raw tooth-and-nail survival. If you didn't move, you didn't eat. If you didn't watch your step, the city's grinding gears would swallow you whole without a second thought. Using AI-assisted reconstruction, historical maps, and the blood-stained accounts of those who actually lived it, we have rebuilt these streets exactly as they functioned. Not as a frozen museum, but as a high-stakes working environment where every ordinary decision, where to stand, how fast to walk, accumulated into a system of life or death. Welcome to the London you weren't supposed to see. The London of the 1870s, before modern reform softened its lethal edges. It's 4 a.m. A thick yellow fog, the infamous Victorian pain soupe, clings to the cobblestones, smelling of coal smoke, horse manure, and rotting cabbage. While the wealthy are still tucked under silk sheets in the West End, Covent Garden is already screaming. This isn't just a market, it's the heart of London's digestive system. In 1870, this was the central wholesale hub for every fruit, vegetable, and flower entering the city. But there is no order here in the way you understand it. There is only momentum. Look at the ground beneath your feet. Those stone surfaces are permanently slick. It's a lethal mixture of overnight cleaning runoff, animal waste, and crushed fermenting produce. In 1870, the golden rule was simple. Never. Look. Down. If you slip under the iron-rimmed wheels of a 2-ton heavy cart, there is no ambulance coming. There are no safety inspectors. The porters behind you won't stop. They literally can't stop. Look at them. These men are carrying pokes, stacks of heavy wicker baskets balanced on their heads, sometimes 12 high. Their spines are compressed, their necks thick as tree trunks from decades of this labor. One stumble from you blocks their memorized path, and 100 pounds of produce comes crashing down, costing them a day's wage, and costing you a broken rib or worse. Listen to the wall of sound hitting you. The shouting isn't just bargaining, it's a tactical warning system. Make way! Mind your eye! Right of way! In this environment, silence is a sign of failure. The darkness is punctuated by the rhythmic thud of crates and the grinding of wooden wheels. Everything operates on a razor-thin timeline. Trading peaks between 4 and 6 a.m. This is not retail. These are massive transactions supplying the city's grand hotels and hospitals. If the goods aren't sold before the sun fully rises, the freshness declines, the prices collapse, and the entire night's labor is burnt. Speed isn't just a preference, it's the difference between a meal and hunger. Look into the shadows at the edges of the piazza. See those small silhouettes? Children. They aren't here to play. They are messengers and cart watchers. They learn early where to stand and, more importantly, where not to stand. They are the grease in the machine, running notes between buyers and sellers, earning pennies that might be the only income their family sees that day. In 1870, the street didn't accommodate hesitation. It rewarded awareness, speed, and the brutal acceptance of risk. Move just a few minutes north, and the atmosphere changes instantly. The wide, purposeful flow of the market collapses into a claustrophobic knot. 7 narrow streets converging on a single cramped point. Welcome to 7 Dials. If Covent Garden was the city's engine, 7 Dials was its pressure valve. This layout was a deliberate architectural trap. In the 1870s, traffic didn't pass through here cleanly. It slowed, it overlapped, and it folded back on itself. Stand at the center and try to look outward. You can't see more than 30 yards in any direction before the street bends into darkness. This geometry matters. Intersections like this concentrate 3 things: people, messages, and opportunity. But opportunity in Seven Dials usually meant someone else's loss. Look at the lodging houses towering above you. Your rooms are subdivided again and again. A single room might hold 3 families, separated only by chalk lines on the floor. Because the interiors are stifling, domestic life pushes outward. The doorways are extensions of the home. If you want to move efficiently here, do what the locals do. Cross diagonally. Cut the angles. If you walk in a straight line like an outsider, you will be stalled. And in Seven Dials, being stalled makes you a target. Pickpockets here don't just take your watch, they take your survival. The air here is heavier than the market. It's thick with the smell of damp wool, coal dust, and unwashed bodies. Sound doesn't project here, it layers. Conversations, disputes, and the cries of hawkers overlap until they become a single vibrating hum of human existence. Today, Seven Dials is a curated tourist spot. In 1870, it was a compressed system of rules that you either learned in a day or suffered for a lifetime. Now, we move east. If Seven Dials was a trap, Whitechapel in 1870 was a death sentence waiting to be signed. This is the most densely populated acre on the face of the earth. In some streets, thousands of people are packed into a space meant for hundreds. Look up at these buildings. 3-4 stories of crumbling brick. Every single room has been subdivided, then subdivided again. One room becomes 2, then many. Look closely at the windows. There are faces in every single one, staring out with eyes that have seen too much. In the winter of 1871, a silent killer moved through these very streets. Smallpox. But it didn't strike by chance. It clustered by address. In Whitechapel, you don't catch a disease because you're unlucky. You catch it because you are breathing the exact same air as 10 other people in a 10 by 10 foot space. Notice the black notices tacked to the doors. That's not just paper. That's a warning of a house in quarantine. But quarantine is a luxury the poor can't afford. Look at the people waiting outside the lodging houses. Even with the fever burning in their veins, they stay in line. If they leave their spot in the queue for a bed or a day's work, they lose their only chance at a meal. Children here don't have a childhood. See that young girl holding a place in line? She's been there for 6 hours, holding a spot for her father who is elsewhere, scavenging for coal. Survival here depends on proximity and awareness. You have to notice the first sign of a neighbor's cough, the first red spot on a child's arm, and decide, do you stay and risk the plague or leave and risk the cold? The street doesn't collapse under this pressure, it absorbs it. Day after brutal day, pause for a moment. Think about your kitchen, your refrigerator. Now, wipe it from your mind. How do you feed 4 million people every single day in a city with no electricity and no cold storage? Welcome to Smithfield. It operates on a clock of blood and iron. By 2 o'clock in the morning, while the rest of London is a graveyard of silence, Smithfield is screaming. The covered market is a cathedral of flesh. Look at the floor. Stone, darkened by decades of animal fat and blood. It's washed repeatedly, but it is never, ever clean. Water runs constantly toward the drains, but it only succeeds in making the surface a skating rink of gore. Straw and sawdust are spread to provide traction, but within minutes they are trampled into a foul, slippery paste. Watch the men working. They don't walk. They slide with purpose. They adjust their stance instinctively as they carry half a cow on their shoulders. These carcasses weighing hundreds of pounds hang from overhead hooks, swaying like ghostly pendulums as porters rush beneath them. One mistimed step, one slip on a patch of wet straw, and a swaying ton of beef will crush your ribs against the stone pillars. The smell is a physical force. Rawhide, damp wool, wet straw, and the metallic tang of fresh blood. It thickens in the enclosed air trapped by the heavy roof. There's no attempt to mask it. This is the factory of life. To feed London, Smithfield demands risk and repetition. Men slip, knives flash, and accidents happen in the blink of an eye. But the work never pauses. If a man falls, he is dragged to the side, and another steps into his blood-slicked footprints. The schedule holds because London's hunger is a monster that never sleeps. From the blood of Smithfield, we follow the carts outward to where London meets the world. St. Catherine Docks. This is the fortress of the British Empire. Gated, guarded, enclosed. Look at the warehouses, brick titans rising directly from the water's edge. This is where the wealth of nations is poured into London's lab. Tea from China, sugar from the Caribbean, spices from India, and wool from Australia. The air here is a cocktail of exotic smells. Wet rope, tar, and the sweet, heavy scent of raw tobacco. But don't look at the cargo. Look at the men at the gates. This is the call-on. Every single morning, hundreds of men, dockers, Irish laborers, immigrants, gather in the cold, gray light. They stand in a semicircle, eyes locked on the foreman. The process takes seconds. A gesture. A name called, a simple nod. And if the foreman points at you, you have work for the day. You can buy bread. You can pay the rent. If he looks past you, you are invisible. Those passed over don't protest. They can't. They drift away in silence, scanning for other work or heading back to the slums of Wapping. The ground here tells the story. Near the water, the wooden planks stay damp and rotting. Further inland, the stones are stained by the residue of 1,000 different cargoes. Sound carries differently here. The tightening of iron chains, the rhythmic thud of crates being lowered, the barking of orders in 10 different languages. Nothing is improvised. Everything is measured against the clock. The docks are the gateway of the empire, but for the men standing at the gate, it's a daily lottery where the prize is simply the right to work until your muscles scream. Now, witness the transformation. By 1870, London attempted something radical. It tried to hide its sins. Welcome to the Victoria Embankment. This wasn't just a road, it was one of the largest engineering projects the world had ever seen. Stand here for a moment and breathe. The air feels different, doesn't it? It's open. It's measured. The river is held back by a massive, continuous wall of granite. Above you, gas lamps are evenly spaced like soldiers on parade. This is the London the Empire wanted the world to see. Aligned, finished, and under control. But look beneath your boots. What matters most is what you can't see. Beneath this roadway, the city's shame, the sewage that once pooled in the streets of Whitechapel and flowed openly into the Thames, is being redirected through massive enclosed channels. Now waste no longer pools where you walk. It flows away, downstream, out of sight. Cleanliness here is engineered, not earned. But this order has a hidden cost. The embankment didn't resolve London's pressure, it simply relocated it. While the surface here is calm, the congestion shifted inward, making the slums even tighter, the air even thinner. Notice how people walk here. They walk in straight lines. There are no carts forcing detours, no crowds begging for work. This is a corridor of transit, a place to pass through, not to exist in. The street here teaches a new, modern rule. When the systems go underground, the surface becomes a stage. As the sun sets, the pressure of London doesn't disappear. It simply changes form. It is redirected here to Leicester Square and the winding alleys of Soho. This is where the city gathers to hold its breath. People arrive here with a clear, desperate intention. To stop moving. To forget. This district is designed for the pause. The wide square pulls you in, and the surrounding theaters and cafes suck you out of the street and into a dream. Look at the Alhambra Theater. It is the epicenter of a legal battle. The authorities want to pull its license not just because of the morality of the dancers, but because of the sheer scale of the crowds. When thousands of people compress into one space to drink and watch a spectacle, they become dangerous. Observe the order here. It's passive. The police stand in the shadows, watching faces, not directing traffic. Cabs create bottlenecks and vendors work the margins, selling anything to a crowd that has spent all day in the dark and is now hungry for light. But this is not relief. It is conversion. Leisure in 1870 is a survival tactic. You work 12 hours in the blood of Smithfield, or the dust of the docks just to earn enough to spend 2 hours here, drowning the fatigue in gin or losing it in the laughter of a music hall. Money flows steadily from the pockets of exhausted clerks into the tills of the bars. By midnight, the crowd is released back into the street, carrying less money and the exact same weight of the world on their shoulders. Now, return to the present. The streets of London today are wider, cleaner, and regulated by invisible digital networks. Disease no longer dictates where you walk. Food arrives in plastic wrap without you ever seeing the blood. Labor is formalized behind screens, but look closer. Some patterns never die. Pressure still gathers where space tightens. Work still shapes our every movement. Leisure still serves to absorb our fatigue rather than remove it. The Victorian city didn't disappear, it just grew skin. What you've seen here isn't a lost world, it is the foundation of yours. 1870s. London trained the modern world in how to move people, how to hide systems, and how to keep a society functioning under impossible strain. If you had to choose, which street would you have survived? The chaos of Covent Garden or the silence of the docks? Tell us in the comments. If this reconstruction helped you see the city differently, hit like and subscribe for more deep dives into the bones of history. Thank you for walking with us through the fog.